Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. The federal government says tensions are rising in the Arctic due to aggression by Russia and China. Today, it announced plans to build alliances to boost protection for Canada's north. Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Long in the making, recent events have put the heat on Ottawa unveiling its Arctic foreign policy.
Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has led us all to ask, who's next? It is clear that Russia has no red lines. Its designs on the Arctic and its resources are well known.
And it's not just Moscow. This Chinese state television footage shows Beijing conducting a military exercise near Alaska less than 4 months ago. Canada's response, reinstating an ambassador to the Arctic, a position abolished by the Conservatives in 2006, opening consulates in Greenland and Alaska. And greater cooperation, Ottawa says, with territorial and Indigenous leaders who warn of foreign interference on their doorstep.
We see it in influence, whether it be at the United Nations or within a number of our priority area issues such as climate change and the Conference of the Parties for biodiversity. We see nation states making grand overtures about either their considerations for the Arctic or regressive policies around Indigenous peoples.
Canada also says it wants to work more closely with like-minded countries in the Arctic. On Friday, its closest ally welcomed the policy announcement.
We value the Canadians' cooperation in securing the Arctic region, and that is peaceful, stable, and prosperous and cooperative. And so, again, we value that strong partnership, and I think they have shown leadership.
But for observers, the proof will be in the pudding.
The increased cooperation between Russia and China in the region. All of these have been long-term problems. They really started developing back in 2014, and we only now see the government trying to act somewhat belatedly in terms of responding.
Looming over all this is the pending Canadian federal election, where polls continue to favor a Conservative win. It's not clear what the official opposition would do with this policy should it come to power, but on Friday they said the government's announcement only shows the Liberals have no real plan to protect Canada's Arctic sovereignty. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A federal committee is hearing testimony this week about a contaminated site in Fort Chipewyan. It's a wharf owned by Transport Canada, but the community uses it recreationally for swimming and fishing. Fort Chipewyan leaders have been demanding cleanup and answers about the site, and Thursday, the minister responded. Natalie Pressman has that story.
A federal minister is apologizing for her department's handling of a contaminated area in Fort Chipewyan. She says the lack of transparency and communication with Fort Chipewyan is unacceptable.
But I've stressed to my department, who are here with me today, that we need to be more proactive going forward.
Anand says the department did send community leaders historic scientific reports from environmental assessments. Those reports showed contaminants, but the department never explicitly told leaders about them. They learned about it themselves this summer and are calling on the feds to remediate the site. They also want mental health support for residents affected by potential exposure to the chemicals. Anand says the report shows no human health risks, but the report only looked at the area as a commercial site and didn't examine possible exposure from recreation in the area. That's why Anand says they're updating the assessment, and with the community's involvement, the new investigation will have a proper scope that looks at how residents actually use the dock. Anand only became transportation minister in September. She says she can only do better moving forward.
I do apologize for the actions of the Department of Transportation over the last number of years. I have been equally frustrated at the way things have transpired.
Anand says she's spoken with Indigenous Services Canada about mental health resources and that they're ready and willing to support. Natalie Pressman, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In Fort Providence, Northwest Territories, the federal government is contributing more than $7 million towards a new emergency shelter. The shelter is intended for Indigenous women and children, along with LGBTQ people fleeing gender-based violence. NWT MP Michael McLeod and Degagoti First Nation Chief Michael Vandell made the announcement. The shelter will have 20 units and 60 beds. The funding comes through the Indigenous Shelter and Transitional Housing Initiative. 3 infrastructure projects were also announced for the NWT. The federal government will commit almost $5 million towards a new water treatment facility and reservoir in Fort Providence and a new piece of industrial equipment for Yellowknife's Legislative Assembly. We have a correction to a story we aired Thursday about a downed generator in the Yukon. One of 3 generators at the Ajiac Dam was damaged and will be offline for the winter. That damage happened in October when a piece of the motor broke off and spun around inside the generator. This led to a power outage that month. On Thursday, we reported that 3 turbines were destroyed and that the damage occurred during a power outage. We regret those errors. Striking postal workers in Whitehorse say the city is crossing the picket line. Letters from the city arrived in some mailboxes this week, and as Cheryl Kawaja reports, the union is crying foul.
On the picket line, local union president Mac Clohan says he's extraordinarily disappointed with the city's decision to deliver mail.
It's egregiously anti-labor and it's unconscionable. We found out on Tuesday that the city of Whitehorse has been delivering letter mail door to door, using scab labor to do so.
He says he's aware the strike is inconvenient and there may well be important information that needs to get out, but that does not make it okay. For its part, the city says it was flyers that were distributed. But the union says it's more appropriate to call it letter mail, given the envelopes and addresses. In an email, the city says planning department staff carried out this solution to ensure residents were aware of a public hearing. The city will not be commenting any further on CUPW's labor dispute. Clohan says city employees delivering mail is outside the scope of their job descriptions. It's not a task they would normally perform, so he maintains it's crossing a picket line. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Staying with the Canada Post labor dispute story, the president of Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami says deliveries to the north should be deemed an essential service. And the federal minister of labor says he's open to it. It comes as all 3 territories struggle during the strike. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak shows us the situation in Nunavut.
A 14-year-old girl in Iqaluit with type 1 diabetes relies on insulin in order to stay alive. Molly Hayward uses a glucose monitor to monitor blood sugar levels and a pump for insulin. The 2 items work together. The monitor sends signals to the pump, which gives insulin to her every 3 minutes and adjusts levels throughout the day. She usually has those items delivered to her via Canada Post, but the strike made that come to a stop. Without the supplies, it would force her to take multiple injections per day, 2 different types of insulin, and continuously having to monitor her levels, even waking up in the middle of the night to make sure she's okay.
It is really stressful not knowing how much longer I will have access to the supplies, because at any moment when I run out, I don't know when the next shipment will come in.
Hayward's mother is resorting to other options, such as asking friends to ship the items via airline or buying them when she comes to Yellowknife. They have enough supplies to last for less than 2 months, but are unsure of what will happen after that.
Depending on something to keep your child alive that is beyond your control really leaves you breathless. And so to have to start to think, how am I going to keep her supplies rolling in a situation that I have no control over is incredibly frustrating, incredibly worrying.
Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Obed says the strike is having a significant impact on communities in Inuit Nunagat, and that at this time of year for Inuit living in remote communities, getting goods and services by air travel is the only way.
We rely on Canada Post for the services of essential items, whether they be for medical purposes or for food security purposes.
Other communities are feeling the effects of the postal strike too. Wayne Gregory is the mayor of Cambridge Bay. He says the strike forces their community to come together and that people are relying on those traveling.
So right now, we've been relying on people who are out for maybe a medical issue or something, and they may bring something back to help their fellow family members or friends if they're out of the community. And then when they're coming back, they'll ask Is there anything that we can bring to help assist? Because they can't receive anything through Canada Post.
The strike is still ongoing at the moment. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Courier companies are struggling with the backlog of parcels resulting from the Canada Post strike. UPS and Purolator have put the brakes on some shipments right in the middle of the holiday buying season. Sam Sampson has the details.
To show off her coloring products, Chantal Laverne likes to stay in the lines, but the latest development in Canada Post's strike has made things a bit messy.
This feels like we get ambushed. Like small businesses, it's like we always have to be like problem solving.
UPS and Purolator are so swamped with deliveries, they've paused some shipments this week to try to play catch up. They're blaming bad weather and the ongoing strike at Canada Post for the backlog. The companies say they now have to prioritize critical shipments. To do that, they're not accepting any parcels from third-party platforms, basically middlemen couriers. So, say you bought a holiday gift from a small online business. Normally, it might need a smaller courier to get it to UPS, for example, which would then deliver it to your home. But now, UPS is not accepting that initial delivery, meaning your parcel is not going anywhere.
These other carriers can't handle what we handled.
The union says this is only proof that the country needs its postal crown corporation.
We have an ability to get to places that other carriers don't, and we have infrastructure that gets it there.
The two parties are not negotiating at the table, but through a federal mediator. Canadians are still getting their coloring gear, just in a different way. Laverne says she's using an aggregate company to hook her up with even smaller couriers to fill the gap, but that's not possible for every shipment.
I've had some in like northern Alberta, places that are a little more remote, a little bit out, because, you know, DHL or Canpar, they don't go everywhere.
Marking another snag in an already busy holiday season. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
This is CBC North on your smart TV because CBC News is now streaming local. Get local headlines, weather, and community notices, plus newscasts and live programming on your favorite connected device, all for free. It's called the CBC News North streaming channel. You can see your community on your connected TV and mobile devices. CBC News North, your local news streaming channel, is now available.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy the water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
This is an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees. I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on the Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Oh, wait, are we allowed to touch? Like, fine. No, it's fine, yeah.
In Australia, a unique experiment
How come you guys don't have a table? We do have a table.
is about to unfold. A school swap that brings together 12 students from very different cultures and religions.
You do what you want to do, it's fine, I'll do me.
My fear is, instead of building bridges, they'll end up blowing them.
I want to be seen as me and not my hijab, not scary terrorists or something like that.
The question is,
and I'm just going to ask, I want to ask you, but
why is this such a big deal? What does the science say?
what was their reaction? What are we talking about here? Who told you?
So, to be clear, what is the actual story there?
I think we can explain.
They reported a shipment of cocaine stolen 2 weeks ago.
We all have our vices, Detective.
Oh, you find that surprising?
Dust, noise, and lowlifes.
Bloody hell.
A Northwest Territories trial has come to a close. The sexual assault trial of 3 men from Hay River ended today. The judge gave his verdict at the NWT Supreme Court in Yellowknife. Sarah Kromolowski reports.
3 men have been declared not guilty of sexual assault in the Northwest Territories. The verdict comes after a days-long trial. 2 women testified that they were sexually assaulted by the 3 men after meeting them at the Hay River Legion. This happened in July of 2022. The women testified that after leaving the Legion, they ended up in a house where one of the men lived. They said that at that house, the men touched them sexually without their consent. But Justice Vital Ouellet ruled the women's testimony was not reliable. He says that was due to gaps in their accounts of what happened that night and inconsistencies in their testimony. He also pointed to evidence that he says indicates they were not as drunk as they said. The 3 men, Maher Salemi, Amin Zahi, and Hassan Zalema, were the last witnesses to testify at the trial. They denied any sexual assault had taken place. Once the judge delivered his verdict, all 3 men embraced their lawyers, and one of the men could be seen wiping away tears. The alleged victims were not present when the verdict was delivered. Sarah Kremlowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Across the country today, events are being held to mark the 35th anniversary of the mass shooting at Polytechnique Montreal, an incident that claimed the lives of 14 women, 13 of whom were students. In Montreal, community groups organized a march calling for an end to violence against women. They hung white ribbons to remember women who have died as a result of femicide in Quebec this year. Also today, people laid bouquets of white roses at the university in memory of those women who were killed in 1989. 13 other women were injured in that attack, which was perpetrated by a man who later took his own life. He had ranted about feminists ruining his life. In Whitehorse, a vigil honored the women killed, as well as 45 missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in the Yukon and women around the world killed by male violence.
What an important day it is to remember what happened and what's still happening today, and just the violence happening in society.
Barbara Dagnon, Anne-Marie Edouard, Maude Havonier, Maryse Lagamière, Maryse Leclerc, Anne-Marie Lemay. The Montreal Massacre is now widely regarded as an anti-feminist attack and representative of wider societal violence against women. In 1991, the anniversary of the massacre was designated the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. Gender inequality exists on many levels. It is safety equipment that is only made in men's sizes. It is the women doing more unpaid work than men. It is girls not having equal access to schools as boys. And at its worst, it is violence against women, the 2S LGBTQIA community, and others. We can't end the violence if we don't have gender equity.
There's still a lot of rug sweeping that happens, and it is something that's continuing to happen, and that we just need to be aware. We need to be allies, we need to help, and we just need to remember to take the time to acknowledge that it is happening today.
A petition to shut down the Cambridge Bay group home is circulating. It says kids at the Nunnik Care Service home are, quote, way out of control and causing vandalism in the Nunavut hamlet. It says they need a place offering better care. The group home cares for at-risk kids aged 5 to 19. It's also under investigation by the Nunavut Department of Family Services. Jocelyn Chappelle reports.
Resident Cody Evelick started the petition to close the group home. He says there's been nothing but problems since its opening mid-2023. The petition claims kids from the group home are involved in numerous crimes, including stealing vehicles and vandalizing properties.
It needs to be put to a stop, and that's where I come in here starting this petition. The only way it's going to stop. Everybody's tired of this. It just can't keep happening.
Cambridge Bay RCMP say they're investigating crimes by youth, including some from the group home. So far, the petition has collected over 100 signatures. Resident Angulelik Pedersen signed it. Vandalism worries him, but so does the quality of care. He says he once asked youth from the group home why they were in the streets at night. He was shaken by what they said.
For the place we live is not good. You know, in their words, the place we live is not good. And we're scared to be there, so we're just here. And they were in a porch of a building getting out of the wind.
Solomon Bucknor is the co-owner of Nunnik Care Service Home. He says there are investigations into allegations involving manhandling and choking between employees and youth from November this year. But he denies any physical abuse.
It needs to be put to a stop, and that's where I come in here starting this petition. The only way it's going to stop. Everybody's tired of this. It just can't keep happening.
The Nunavut Department of Family Services says they are conducting an investigation with RCMP. The department says they are unable to confirm what kind of allegations they are looking into. They say that ensuring the safety and well-being of those in care is their highest priority. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
It's where the Royals like to stay when they come to the NWT. It used to be where the Legislative Assembly would meet before it had its own home. And this month, it's celebrating its 50th anniversary. Yellowknife's Explorer Hotel. Take a look.
I think it's always been the premier hotel of the North. It's the place to stay when you come to Yellowknife. It still is, and I think it always has been. It's a great focal point as you come into town. It's a beautiful building, and they continue. They do so much in the community.
So throughout the year, starting in May, we have a great initiative, and it's 50 Good Deeds in the community. So we have been performing throughout the year, volunteer work, participating in community events, some sponsorships, and just supporting nonprofits and community-based groups. We've gone in 3 parades now that the hotel's never participated in before, so we're pretty excited about that. We were in the Pride Parade, Canada Day Parade, and just recently the Santa Parade. We've put teams forward this summer in a couple golf tournaments that were some local charities that they were raising money for. We've sponsored recently we just sponsored Students Against Drunk Driving. We've given them some funds to help them carry out their great work that they're doing.
I can see my house from here. It's a luxury stay for those coming to Yellowknife, and when we're trying to attract, more businesses and an economic uptake in the community, I think it's a big part of that people have the option to stay here. I think there's a lot of international tourists and national companies that are coming through and looking at Yellowknife as a destination. And so, yeah, I think the Explorer Hotel provides some premier lodging for attracting that type of economic activity to Yellowknife.
I do think that it does resonate, like it's very important for when you work in the hotel to also engage with everybody in the community. Yeah, our team has been amazing.
Yukon snowboarders and downhill skiers can hit the slopes this weekend. Whitehorse's Mount Sema Ski Hill opened to the public today. Though 2 runs are not open for now, those will be used for a Canada Cup freestyle ski event this weekend. The Hill's general manager says conditions are good despite the recent rain.
What it's done is it's just put a small layer on top of this, the fresh, but underneath is still quite powdery, and it's looking great up there.
Otley says Canada Cup athletes and officials will be using the chairlift. Spectators are welcome to travel some slopes on foot tonight to watch the freestyle competition. Fire pits and the lounge will be set up along with food and drinks. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a look at the annual Share the Spirit Pancake Breakfast. It happened at Porter Creek Secondary School this morning in Whitehorse. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a great weekend.
They reported a shipment of cocaine stolen 2 weeks ago.
We all have our vices, Detective.
Oh, you find that surprising?
Sports is life. It's clear cut. Everything's out in the open. There's nowhere to hide. I had to prove myself more than anyone else.
You must be so proud of your son. He's gonna go pro. The sky's the limit.
There's always a winner and a loser.
You cannot reach the sky in broken cleats.
Of course, I always want to be the winner. And I did reach the sky.
Norman Kwong, the first Chinese-Canadian professional football player, still holds records to this day. He retired from the sport in 1960 and later became Lieutenant Governor of Alberta.
Wait.
It's a ceremony?
And Your Majesty may be pleased to know that this year, thanks to the help of our Indian friends, we have produced some 30,000 pounds of this sweet gift.